Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Merrimack School Board this Monday evening, March 7th, 2016. Would you rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One quick announcement before we begin. Student Rep Jacob Marcus is excused. He is actually representing Merrimack High School as one of two students from New Hampshire in Washington at a national congress. And from what I understand, they're going to hear a speech from Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg during their visit. Which takes us to item number 2. Moment of silence for Ashley Gwindon. Little over a week ago, Officer Gwindon was shot down on her first day on the job. She was 28 years old and a graduate of Merrimack High School. She wrote in her yearbook, "Live for something rather than die for nothing." She was put to rest today in Springfield, Mass. And I'd like to have a moment of silence. Thank you. And that takes us to item number 3. Approval of the February 15th, 2016 minutes. Is there a motion? Made by Mr. Schneider, seconded by Vice Chair Barnes. Any corrections? There are no page numbers, but there are line numbers. Any corrections?
Yeah, but I forgot to mark
I have some if you want to look for yours. Line 137, which would appear to be the top of page 4, it says curved butt up close is how it should read, as opposed to bet. And I think I had one or two more. Nope, I think that was all I had. Any other corrections? Okay. Seeing none, we'll put the minutes to a vote. All those in favor of approving the February 15th, 2016 minutes as amended, say aye. Opposed? None. The motion carries 5-0-0. Thank you. And that will take us to item number 4, public participation. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board. All we ask is that you come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Is there anyone looking to address the board under public participation? Seeing none, we will close public participation and move to item number 5, second review of proposed calendar for 2016-2017.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask if you'd get back those minutes that we just went over, because I'm going to refer to the questions that were raised by board members at the last meeting. And so I'm going to refer you to lines 261 to 263. This was a question that was raised by Vice Chair Barnes, and it had to do regarding a letter that had been received from a parent of a student athlete concerned about the scheduling of midterm exams to coincide with surrounding districts. So what I've done is to make contact with the athletic director, Eric Sabian, and what he said is that Merrimack, if it keeps with the draft calendar, will be in somewhat of a similar situation relative to sports and semester exams. However, there will be more flexibility than this year, because the 2016-17 year will be the first year of a 2-year NHIAA schedule to move sports competitions around the schedule. So what he's hoping is, if he had advance notice, meaning by the next meeting, then he would be able to submit that, talk to the overseer, across the board, and we'd have more latitude than if we were in the second year of a 2-year schedule. So I thought that was as positive as it could be. Then if you look further down to 272 and 273, you'll see that here Vice Chair Barnes raised the question of calendar alignment for vocational education students attending other schools. And what I have in my possession now are draft calendars, both from Nashua and Hudson. As you know, that's where our students attend. Both of those school systems are slated to start on August 30. So that would mean that they would have 4 days ahead of us, because we tentatively would start on September 6th. So that's the major difference, are those 4 days. They are able to bring educators in earlier than that for staff orientation, and then they have their professional development peppered throughout the school year, either through early release days or perhaps a day a quarter, as we have done in the past. If you turn over to the next page, you'll see that there was also a question or a comment about Vice Chair Barnes talked in terms of a lot of days off in November because we're scheduled to take November 8th for Election Day, and then we have the days before Thanksgiving. So I believe what she was suggesting is, because we're having this National Election Day, we might need to look at Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, being a day of school. What I would tell you is that both Nashua and Hudson have off the 23rd to the 25th of November. So, in that way, we would all be in sync. The last area was really the line items 286 to 291, where the board talked in terms of trying to put forward some type of survey to be able to find out what the public would say relative to the draft calendar. And for that, I'm going to turn to Mark, who's done some work in preparation for getting something out to the public.
Really quite simply, we're after meeting with the superintendent and Chair Ortega, we were able to develop a draft of a survey, just 5 questions that answer yes or no to folks regarding parts of the calendar about which there is some debate. There are a number of things about which there is no debate. For instance, that federal holidays require that Veterans Day and Memorial Day are shut, that schools are shut, and the contractual obligation to start no earlier than the Monday before Labor Day in any given year, and that because of the impact of voting on school district facilities, that we must be closed on Election Day this year, November 8th. So wanting the community to understand what givens there are that over which we don't have any control, and then just 5 questions, yes or no, asking folks to weigh in on those things about which there could be some flexibility. And so we're preparing to issue that tomorrow with a response by March 15th in preparation to calibrate the results and then to present at the next board meeting.
Mr. Schneider.
How is that being disseminated?
Yep, so it's SurveyMonkey, and the idea is that it would be disseminated through each school, so that the idea is that each of the 6 buildings would be able to probably get better results if it were implemented at each school site rather than from one standard location. Then the principals could, support through announcements and so on to increase response rate. That's the hope.
So it's going to be announced at the individual schools.
No, it's going to be disseminated through the schools. the survey.
Disseminated through the schools, through
Right.
either the Power School portal or through a handout or something like that?
Yep, it's through the well, that's something that Nancy Rose is going to
Okay.
help me out with tomorrow.
I'm just curious because people will say, why didn't you just put the link from the district webpage versus disseminating through the individual schools? I just want to know if people are going to ask where they can get the URL.
So I think we thought that the idea would be that if it were announced through the individual schools, that each school could increase the response rate by talking about it rather than having it be in, working through the parents and so on, rather than having it just be through one central location. But Nancy will work with, with the idea of making sure that it's maybe on the district page and each
Okay.
individual school page and so on.
Okay.
She can help with that. Mhm.
Ms. Guglielmi?
And would there be a way just to identify people? So, it's not, you could go enter it 6 times or something like that. Is there a way that you would just say your name?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Schneider?
And will there be a place in the survey to put comments? Or is it just 5 questions and that's it?
There will be a place to put one, just an open comment thing. Most of it's yes, no, and our hope is that the responses, generally speaking, would fall into different categories. It would be easily,
Sure.
characterized. So that, yes,
It's just, if there's one place that somebody can put a comment.
Yep.
So if there's a topic you didn't touch on, at least they have an opportunity to chime in on it.
Yep.
So, okay.
Ms. Guglielmi?
Could you just read those questions for us, the 6 questions?
yes. There are 5 at the moment.
5.
Might want to read the preamble.
So the preamble says, parent feedback is very important to us as it is one of several data points that that the school board of the Merrimack School District will use to develop the 2016-17 school calendar. As the Merrimack School Board seeks your input regarding the 2016-17 school calendar, it is important to share some facts about the school calendar that cannot be changed. 1, under federal law, all schools must be closed on Veterans Day and Memorial Day. 2, per teacher contract, school cannot begin any earlier than the Monday before Labor Day in any given year. 3, due to the impact of voting on school district facilities, all schools must be closed on Election Day, November 8, 2016. And question number 1, teacher workshops that are held as a cluster of days at the beginning of the school year would delay the start of school for students by up to 4 days. Could you support a school calendar that had such an impact on the start of school for students? Yes or no? Then, do you support having no school on Columbus Day, 10/10/16? Yes, no. Do you support having no school on the day before Thanksgiving? Yes, no. Do you support having no school on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, January 16, 2017? Yes, no. Do you support having no school on President's Day, February 20th, 2017, recognizing that the following week is February vacation? Yes, no. So we were thinking that given the givens of days that we can't do anything about for the reasons that we say in the preamble, that that allows folks to weigh in on things about which, as I said, there is some flexibility, could be some flexibility.
Ms. Guglielmi?
I just had one more question I'd like to propose, just for if it's not too late to be able to get that on there, would be, I noticed that the Christmas or the holiday over Christmas time is shorter compared to what we've had in prior years, and I wondered if maybe we should put a question as, are you in favor, something to the effect of, would you be in favor of a longer holiday break, meaning that school would go later into the summer days? Or something to that effect.
I don't have an issue asking the question.
So how would you be specific as saying, would you take like the 23rd of December off to add on, knowing that you'd add a day at the end? Would you be specific like that?
I think that would be fine. I mean, something,
I mean,
because it is very short and condensed.
Because you want
for
to,
people.
if the results came back overwhelmingly, you'd want to make it actionable as opposed to
No, that's
general.
fine.
Superintendent?
If you're going to ask that question, could I suggest that you go for January 2nd instead of December 23rd? Because there are some systems that are taking Monday, January 2nd off. given that the first is on Sunday and that would elongate it. I chose purposely not to because I was trying to find another day. I was trying to shorten up June, so.
How many days do we typically have? Is it usually just one more? Yeah.
Mm.
Either way, I would support either the 23rd or the January 2nd. Or maybe that's the question. Would you support either? Or two questions.
Don't make it too complex.
I know.
Yeah. Vice Chair Barnes.
To that end, I think it's a sticky widget because on December 23rd, let's look at the families that are impacted by the decision. Do you or don't you have days to burn at the end of the calendar year for vacation? On the flip side, you're taking your first
That's true.
possible accrued time off, the first possible day to take it. So, for those that have that, that office environment, those are two very impactful days. Either you're front loaded on time or you're depleted on time. Or like me, you never took the time and now you're, trying to burn days off. So, for me, it would be, the 23rd would be ideal for the way my schedule always works. But for a lot of people, by the time December 23rd hits, they've usually depleted their time.
And do we know, is the second the observed holiday for New Year's?
The answer is yes on the state calendar.
So I guess my inclination would be if the board were to go in one direction or the other to add a day that, as the superintendent said, and what Vice Chair Barnes has just said in terms of people's work schedules, I'd be inclined to add it on the 2nd as opposed to the 23rd. And so I would prefer that we ask the question that way. Mr. Powell.
Have you polled other districts or polled Ceresc as to, I know you said some districts are taking the 2nd. Do you have an idea of how many?
No, I've only dealt with Nashua and Hudson on purpose because of
And that makes
vacation.
sense. And what are they doing?
They have Monday off, the 2nd.
Okay.
Ms. Gualiumi.
I think to Shannon's point, I think it's a day that most people are likely to have off anyways. So without having to take a vacation day, that does make the most sense since it's, I think Andy just pointed out, it's on the federal calendar.
Okay.
So if we could add a question along those lines, I would appreciate it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think to Cinda's point, if I could, add on to that, because I started it, but families that have the day off at home without their kids because they're going to school, I know it happens, occasionally for things like President's Day. It won't be as common as you're gonna have a lot more parents off if they had that. If the holiday falls on Sunday, and I didn't really think about that when I asked my first question. If the holiday falls on Sunday, you get the Monday off. If the holiday falls on Saturday, you get the Friday off for those for the major ones. So that being said, I think the 2nd should be seriously considered as a day off for the district.
Great. So we'll add the question.
Yes.
Any other discussion regarding the calendar? Mr. Schneider.
So I want to bring up a couple of points real quick because there's been some discussion in various forums about the contract, and there was when we talked about the calendar last year, there was some discussion that with the contract up for renewal, that we might look at changing the way that we did days or the way we did the calendar as an option. Because I know I brought it up as an example. Two things I want to bring up, two specific points around that. On October 5th last year, we had members of the Amherst and Sauhegan districts come in front of us at the board and talk explicitly about the way that they implemented their teachable hours calendar, which were, rather than teachable days, teachable hours. And I encourage anybody that doesn't remember or didn't attend the meeting on October 5th to watch it, because I think we as a board learned a lot about what it means to do teachable hours and the impacts it has to not only contracts, but teachers and staff contracts, but also just general things around sporting events and buses and after school and parents things. And the Amherst folks went through a long multi-year process to really sort through this before they adopted a new calendar. So as a result, I think we all as a board at the time decided we would take a step back and sort of look at what it all meant. We knew we were coming off a worst case scenario with the latest possible Labor Day that there could be. We also noticed that their end of school day was very similar to ours, even though they did teachable hours versus instruction days. So I think we wanted to take a step back. And the other thing is that we, being part of the negotiating team for the contract, we did not approach the contract this time around to look at changing the type of days because we knew that we had to go through all this rigor first, and because we didn't know what the end result would be, it didn't make sense to try to negotiate that into this contract, because we literally were negotiating the contract while we were having the discussion with Amherst at the time. So we decided not to put that in. And one final thing is that we did choose in the contract to keep in the teacher workshop days at the beginning of the year, largely because of the board, the administration, as well as the teaching staff felt the benefits of having the days at the beginning to have that August Academy and that structured workshop, and also not having any teacher workshop days during the year, no early releases, no teacher workshops. Even though that means that we start a little later, the net result at the end is pretty close to the other districts because we still have the same number of ultimate days if you add them all together. So for folks that might be watching that are concerned that we ignored the issue as part of the contract or whatever, it actually, the data didn't point to making the change to the workshops, and keeping the start date when we did made sense for that reason. And also the discussion of teachable hours is something I think that we as a board would take up after this and separate from this activity to talk through all the issues that we learned on October 5th. So I just wanted to sort of summarize what we went through and why the process ultimately looks the same as it was a year ago.
Yeah, thank you. The other takeaway that I had from the discussion from Amherst was they went through all of those extra hoops, as you put it, because they had a very exacerbated problem in that they were having, or apparently they're susceptible to flooding. And so where we have typically had maybe 4, even last year, I think it was ultimately 4 makeup days for that horrible winter that we had, they on average were having 11 or 12 makeup days due to flooding, which really forced them to look at a different model. So in addition to all of the things that you shared, I also took away that there was a very different problem that they were attempting to solve. Thank you for that. Ms. Guagliumi.
And I have one more question regarding the communication, and that is where will the draft calendar be? Is it able to be included in a SurveyMonkey email or the link back to the website? How will that look?
The calendar right now, we can add that. The calendar right now is on the district website in the filing cabinet, which is where information like that is typically stored. So it's available to the public right now. It could be included as
Like a link.
an attachment.
Link or attachment. Okay, I would recommend that.
Yeah, we had talked about that. Great. All right. So now we will move to item number 6, scheduling the 2016 graduation date. Superintendent Chaffrey.
Thank you. So Principal Johnson and I have conferred, and given the state of the calendar year, we are proposing that Saturday, June 11th, be the 2016 graduation at 10 a.m. on Student Memorial Field behind the high school. So I would commend that to your calendar.
Mr. Schneider.
So what if we get like 3 more snow days before the end of the year? Just saying. We're going to keep it there?
Well, we're going to keep it there, and the other thing is we control senior week when that starts and ends, and so we feel that we're in pretty good shape. So we've taken a look at it, and we'll just play with senior
I know
week.
the likelihood's low, but this winter's been anything but predictable. So
No, but we're now getting enough calls of people who are trying to make plane reservations and are looking back at the schedule. This is the meeting where we normally put a stake in the ground, as it were.
So you've set the over-under. I'm betting the under. Definitely. All right. That will take us to item number 7, correspondence. Is there any correspondence to come before the board? You'll have to remind me, perhaps.
We had a parent that had reached out to us
Oh, yes,
regarding
about the calendar.
Regarding the calendar.
Yes. someone was paying close attention and noticed that they hadn't gotten the survey and was following up because they were concerned because they thought we'd be moving on it and they hadn't had a chance to provide their input. And the answer is we were just delayed in getting the survey out. And they seemed appreciative of that response. Thank you. Comments? Any comments from the board? I would just share that tomorrow evening is deliberative session at James Mastrocola Upper Elementary School at 7 p.m. in the APR, where we will be reviewing all of the warrants on the ballot. I think folks here have their firsts and seconds for motions all worked out, and so I would encourage everyone to come out. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to item number 8, new business. Seeing none, we'll move to item number 9, committee reports. Mr. Powell.
Healthcare Cost Containment Committee met last Wednesday. There was a discussion, Mark Merrifield was in attendance, and there was a discussion about creating more accessibility for employees to get to the information that Health Trust is offering in the form of smartphone apps, et cetera. There was also a meeting or a presentation, if you will, on Election Day. Health Trust came and spoke with the maintenance department and found out that there's a good number of those employees that do not have computer access, so they're not able to take advantage of this, but they do have smartphones. So therein, the idea of thinking outside the box and trying to come up with apps so that they can take advantage of Smart Shopper and other aspects in that regard. So more to come.
Very interesting. Mr. Schneider.
So just FYI, when I was gone on business last week, I believe there was a Planning and Building Committee meeting on Monday the 29th, although I didn't get verification it happened, although it likely did. And I don't know any of the results from that, so I apologize. On Thursday, there's supposed to be a Merrimack Safeguard meeting, and that was supposed to be our annual survey that we do for the grant, where we partake in the survey with the team. But the person facilitating it had a conflict, so it didn't happen this month. So they actually canceled the Safeguard meeting last Thursday. So that I wasn't there, but it didn't occur. So I guess I hit 50-50 for last week. And there is going to be a subgroup meeting this Thursday to talk about the AOK program, sort of a working group meeting that Deb Wolfline is running this Thursday. So some members of Safeguard will participate. Unfortunately, it overlaps with the town deliberative session.
Right.
I'm not sure how much attendance, but that's planned for this week. So.
Great. Thank you. Any other committee reports? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to item 10, public comments on agenda items. Is there anyone interested in making a comment? If not, we'll close public comments. We'll take a moment to sign the manifest, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn made by Mr. Powell, seconded by Ms. Guagliumi. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed, none. The motion carries 5-0-0. Thank you, everyone. Good night.